Okay, welcome, Brick fans. This is Terrastical Bricks on Twitch. Just wondering how the sound sounds. Too loud, too quiet. I changed my setup one last time. Well, hopefully it's the last time, but one more time. But um, it looks like it's okay here on my end. Okay, good. All right, excellent. So today we are going to be building set 6357, which is the um, Stunt Copter and Truck, which is also one of my favorites from when I was a child. This of the three first ones we've done so far, this one was my most favorite for a long time, because it was a tractor trailer. And when I was a child growing up, that's what I wanted to be, was a tractor trailer driver. I just thought that they were really cool because they were big machine, driving machines and whatnot. So that was what I was wanting to be when I grew up. So I loved tried to get as many of these types as I could, but I think this was only one of the few that I actually did end up getting that was an actual tractor trailer. Um, but obviously, my career did not end up going that direction, as I am not a truck driver. I realized that, yeah, I could not survive that, you know, traveling on the road all the time, sort of thing. So, anyway, it was still a child's dream. Um, so some details on this set. This set has 152 pieces, two minifigures included. Um, It is a truck, a trailer, and a helicopter, basically as a transport. And then it was released in 1988. I would have been 5 years old at the time. Again, I may not have gotten that at 5 years old. I can't remember, but it would have been about close to that period of time. Um, I was old enough at that period to remember getting these early sets. So and I loved building them. I was able to follow the instructions. Am I going to try to live my dream for at least a day? I would love to. I've been inside the cabs of multiple trucks. I don't think I've been in a drive of any of them, but yeah, especially the modern ones, they're really cool. They made things really easy for you. Um, they're automatic now. You don't have to shift things along that nature. They've got all these safety features, so I'm sure the stress is a little bit better. But I don't know. They're expensive. If I want to get one myself, and then I have to go for a CDL license and all that other stuff. So we'll see. Um, anyway, this build again. Uh, is 152 pieces. We are going to start. I've got these instructions here in front of us. Um, Again, I can't show the full instructions on the camera, just because of the fact that I've looked up some research and they say that that could potentially be a copyright violation to show the whole instruction set on camera. So I might just show bits and pieces again, as I mentioned in my first build video. Um, you can follow along if you'd like. If you pull up this set on brickinstructions.com, you can just go there and search for set 6357 in their search engine, and that should pull up this set, and you can follow along with the steps as we go through them. And you can skip ahead, ask questions, things along that nature if you'd like. Um, I also managed to, before I started this night stream, to get some of the pieces I had replaced ahead of time. So I can actually show you when we get to these locations in the build. I can show you some of these older pieces that I ended up replacing because they were in poor condition, or I didn't feel like um, the condition was good enough for at least a good build. Especially if I plan on keeping it for, uh, oh goodness, what's the word? Yeah, not emotional reasons. What's the word I'm looking for? Chat, help me out. When you care about something, for more than just money. Ah, well, if you put it in there, sentimental. Thank you. Ah, my brain. I wonder sometimes. Yes, if I keep it for sentimental value, I was planning on ensuring that all the pieces were in good condition. So let's get started. Again, I'll explain some of the differences between these directions from previous or from back in the 1980s to today. Again, I'm not going to show the whole build, but as you can see between each step, they don't show like they do currently in current builds. They do not show the pieces that are added or quantity of those pieces. They do not show the uh, they do not show the locations of where those pieces are added, sorry, highlighted for you like they do in modern day sets, especially the large ones, the more complicated ones. Those sets are um, um, or those instructions nowadays, they show all those additional things because the sets have gotten more complicated over time. And as such, when I was building them as a child, you basically had to look for the differences between the different steps. So it was a lot of like not hidden objects per se, but a lot of those compare and look for differences sort of thing that you did in school as a kid, and try to figure out what changed basically. So that's what we're going to do here. Do not be surprised if I miss things in some steps because I still do as a result of that. I do like the fact that Lego has added those changes to more modern day instructions, but on simpler sets, I feel like, it might not be as needed as much. Anyway, I will go ahead and start us on the minifigure builds. That's always usually was the first thing that they did in these early sets. And so I will go ahead and open up the pieces over here. Have the bag. Dump them out. Make sure there's none left in the bag and throw that to the side. Put those pieces around. Okay, so we are looking for two red legs, minifigure legs. So I have those here. And then we have two of these, I like to say like the sports or stunts minifigure torsos. And then two minifigure heads. Again, from that time period, they were solid studs on top. Later on, they ended up making them hollow with some cross pattern in there for breathing. And by breathing, what I mean is that they made it. They tried to make it more child safe. So if a child accidentally swallowed one of these heads, they actually had that hole in the center of the head to allow the child to be able to breathe through the head without, or through the nose if they stuffed it up their nose too, without suffocating themselves. That actually was a design feature for future Lego heads. But anyway, these ones did not have it. The 1980s were dangerous, just FYI. As well as, the standard heads were just smiley faces for the most part. More as the years went by, they started changing the faces and adding more features and definitely sleeking them up to show a lot of different expressions. But the basics were just smiley faces from back in the day. And then one minifigure has a helmet, a motorcycle helmet with a blue trans blue, or I guess it's a trans light blue visor is the technical um, color for that. So here we are. There's the trans light blue visor, and then the other one has a red baseball cap. So I'll put that here so you can see the red baseball cap. Now, before I put these together, I'm going to show you the comparison of the ones that I actually ended up replacing, because most of the issues for minifigures from this time period, again, I've explained that in a couple other builds, is that the patterns end up getting smudged off. So the faces would get smudged off over time. The patterns on the shirts or the torsos would get smudged off over time. Um, and you'll see here in a minute the head, the caps, the bill would end up getting bent, and you would get stress marks at the bill. And then even bite marks, because sometimes the heads would get stuck inside of the motorcycle helmet, and the only thing you knew to do as a child to get that out of there was to put pressure on the top to force that head out. Um, and so we didn't have those special removal tools that they have today, which are great, by the way. One of the best inventions of Lego in the more recent era. But so I'll show you the original torsos. So these are the original torsos that I owned for this set. As you can see, the patterns are very smudged, almost missing on this one. The red is almost not existent. Are these used? Yes. This one was used enough that the arm has cracked. If you can see there's a little crack. Let me see if I can get the camera to focus or show that. Yes, okay, right there. I think that's a good spot. You can kind of see that little line right there in the crack in the arm. And that causes these arms to just easily pop out. And it was annoying, especially if you're putting a tool or something in their hand for that to pop out. Also, a lot of times the white would end up yellowing due to sun damage. UV light would do that to the white bricks over time. But anyway, so these were the original ones, and I managed to actually source 2 newer ones. They're almost practically brand new. I also had 2 examples of the red hats with the bill stress marks on them, so you can see what those look like originally. So I replaced the hat as well on this set. And then on top of that, here were some of the original heads. I don't know if these were the original heads for this set, but these are some of the ones I had. And you could see that the faces are in sad shape. A lot of times, you would also get that if somebody bit it enough, you couldn't even get the head on the torso anymore as a result of the damage on the inside. And then here's a helmet that likely went to this set. As you can see, it's cracked here, right here in the middle, and there's teeth marks right here, and that's likely what happened. Is somebody bit it to try to get the head out and cracked it, and at that point, it's almost unusable because the visor might not sit right on that particular helmet. It actually looks like it's doing okay here, but you know, I can basically imagine that this would be after an accident, right? That would be after they've gotten into an accident. So anyway, those were just some of the examples of old pieces, old used pieces versus newer kept pieces kept in nicer condition. And as a child, I certainly no, I didn't do my best to take care of them all the time. Again, we didn't have the multi-tool to pull pieces apart, so your teeth were basically the next best option. On top of that, I had siblings and also animals that can potentially get a hold of these things and bite them as well. So, anyway, I'll put these to the side now. Old ones, keep the new one. Put the old ones to the side. All right, and we'll build the minifigures real quick. So basically, yep, that needs to go to the side. Put their helmet on, and there's him with his visor, and then here's the other one with his cap. And in this particular set, the one with the visor is the helicopter driver, flyer, pilot, basically. And then the other one is the big rig driver. So I will put them to the side for now. It's what I usually do on these smaller sets so they can stay in the screen for the time as we go on to build. It's Lego's fault for making them so satisfying to chew. Yeah, that's true. It's not like they didn't make them, you know, taste bad or give them some form of like tinfoil in them that would make them tingle when you went to chew them. So that would discourage kids. Well, and we already know again, you know, they had the solid studs on top, so you know they weren't necessarily caring about child safety all that much. They didn't have age restrictions on these sets back then either. That didn't come around until the 90s or early to mid 90s, I believe. Is when they started putting age restrictions. Edit crowns were edible too back then. That's true. I wish they tasted like they looked, but you know that's not necessarily the case. I always liked those markers that smelled exactly like they what you know the color. Green was lime and red was cherry, and those were hard to resist. I will say that. All right, now to get started on step one of the helicopter. It looks like they start with the helicopter here, so I'm gonna get started on that. Spread this out a little bit more on the side here. All right. So step one is going to be the feet of the helicopter, and that requires two of these yellow, and I know they consider them bars, and I've got Bricklink pulled up here right now to ensure. Yeah, so it's considered a yellow bar 1x6 with open studs. That's what these two pieces are considered. Um, and then I have two 1x6 black plates. That's basically what it come down to. So hook those together like on the instructions. And if I go out of frame with the build, let me know. I may tend to do that on some of the larger ones we end up going to, but we'll see. And again, we have three different views: isometric, top down, and then a parts bin view. So that way, if you spot pieces before me, or you know, you might just like a different view versus the normal one. All right, step two now adds in a mini build first. So it looks like a 2x4 red plate. Let me just bring these down a little bit. 2x4 red plate, two 1x1 round yellow plates, which I called them lights when I was a kid. I just basically called them lights. That's what was my description of them. But the technical term is round yellow, or I'm sorry, trans clear or trans yellow round plate. I got the color wrong there for a second. And then it looks like we have a hinge, base, and top. So here's the hinge, base, and top. As you can see, it allows it to move in a 90-degree fashion. Most of the times, these actually would come as two different pieces. So here's the base, here's the top, and you can put them together, and they snap together like that. Sometimes I get them together, sometimes not. It all depends. So this gets bent on a 90-degree angle. This put upside down. This gets placed like so. And then the lights are added onto the bottom section of that base. And that's likely to allow the lights to do a little bit of a movement. And then this gets added in right here. Yep. There we go. And then it looks like there's also two 1x3 red plates as well that are placed onto this step on the sides of the red 2x4. So they get placed here. Okay. All right, so there's the base of the helicopter so far. Onward to step three. We add, looks like two 1x3 black slopes. And that are these. And then a 2x2x1 inverted slope black brick. So that is an inverted slope, basically. It's this one here. So That is an inverted slope. The inverted slope goes on the back end of the helicopter like so. And the slopes, the 1x3x1 slopes, go on the sides of the helicopter there. Step 4 adds in another inverted slope, but this one is a little larger. It is a 2x3x1 inverted, black inverted slope. So that is somewhere in here. Let me find it. There it is. All right, so there's your 2x3x1 inverted slope, and then a 1x4 brick. 1x4x1 brick. So there's that. Black as well in the color. Then it also adds in 2 antennas and antenna bases. So the antennas are black and the bases are yellow. And sometimes in sets these would come together like this. They would come together with the antenna already attached to the base. In some sets they would not. You would have to you would find that the antenna was separate of the base, and you would have to attach them. This doesn't show that as a mini step, so I'm going to assume that these actually came together when they came in the set, but I could be wrong. I don't remember from a child if they did or not. But these are basically the controls that the helicopter pilot will use to fly the plane, or I'm sorry, helicopter. So they are placed on an angle like so on the base of the helicopter, and then the 2x3 inverted brick is there, and then the 1x4x1 brick is located there. Step 5 calls for 2 yellow 1x2 tiles with a stud in the center, and that is what these are. There are those tile pieces with a stud in the center, and then 2 2x2 corner plates that are yellow as well. So that is what step 5 involves, and the 2 corner plates go on opposite sides like this on the back, and then the 1x2 tiles with the center stud go on the end of the inverted slope like so. Oh, I actually ended up pushing down so hard on the on the helicopter that time that it actually stuck to the base plate here. That happens. That's the point of the building sometimes with on that plate, to keep it still. Step 6 is a 3-point mini build with a yellow 1x8 plate, and then a red 1x8 plate, a black 1x3x1 slope, a trans red 1x1 tile. So notice this light, even though I'd still consider this a light, this light is a square instead of round. So they actually consider this a trans red tile. And then there is the 2x2 red plate with wheel holder. And that is what this is right here. And since I've gotten to this step at this point, I'm going to show you something off to the side here. Here's the one I ended up replacing. And I don't know if the camera really can show too much of a difference this far away. But if you can't see it, this one's squeezed in. This one has a larger gap in the center here. So this squeezed in one was actually just probably pinched over time or bitten down over time. I probably could pry it apart to get it to work better, but I just figured I'd replace it. So this one has a gap, and I just realized some of the pieces are out of the camera's view. I just bought one with a gap, and you'll see here in a second why that gap's there in step 7. But anyway, I just wanted to show this was one of the bricks I ended up replacing for that reason. And then it also looks like in step 6 there is a 1x4 red plate. and a, yeah, I think that's black, 1x2 black plate. Find that, there it is. Okay. So the mini step basically is building the tail of the helicopter. So it starts with the 1x8 yellow. The 1x8 red is offset by 2 spots on the yellow plate, like so. And then the 2x2 red wheel holder goes on the very end. The 1x3x1 black slope, it's on the end of the tail as well. Then the trans red tile, 1x1 tile, goes on top of that as a light. And then that tail gets added onto the end of the helicopter, onto those 2 yellow 1x2s with the center stud, like so. So that way it was allowed it to center it, to the helicopter versus being on one side or the other. They didn't have that ability until, mid to late 80s, I believe. Prior to that, they had to stick them to one side. They didn't have those center tiles. And then the red 1x4 goes there, and the black 1x2 goes right here. So far that is the helicopter starting to take shape. We've got a tail now. Step 7 adds in the propeller, which is one of the other reasons why I ended up replacing the propeller as well. So this propeller here on the right is the propeller I replaced, and that's because it's got a bunch of chew marks on it. I don't know how they got there, why they got there, but they did. It has chew marks on it, so I ended up replacing it with a newer one that I either, I didn't buy these pieces. These pieces just came, well, I mean, technically, I guess I did buy them at some point, but when I got bulk Legos from Goodwill, I just backfilled some of the pieces from there versus buying them from Bricklink directly on purpose. So in this case, I was able to backfill this piece with parts that I gotten from Goodwill bulk sets. Anyway, so this is the propeller that I ended up replacing, and so I'll bring back this red wheel holder here and show you that. See, that just slides in and out very easily with that pinched end on there. So if I were to use it on the helicopter and put the propeller on there, that propeller's falling off. So I had to get a newer wheel holder so that propeller stays on there. And hopefully you heard the little snap at the end there, kind of gives a hint as to, yeah, it's on there and it's not going to come off easily without force anyway. Step 7 also calls for a 2x3. I'm gonna have to look at what this one would actually be called, because I think it's a modified plate is what they consider this. Yeah, black plate modified 2x3 with hole. That's basically what they consider that piece right there. And then there were 2 1x1 black bricks. And here's one of them. Let me see if we can find the other. In here somewhere. I don't know why, but those always were really hard to find, especially in larger sets. And so the 1x1s are placed on either side of the helicopter like so. And then this 2x3, and there I go again, pushing so hard it's starting to stick to the base plate, goes in the center there to keep the tail on. Kind of an ingenious way of doing that with the center hole there on the end, so it can keep that tail from coming off. And I believe that's the end of step 7. Yep, that looks good. So step 8, we're getting close to the end of the helicopter. Step 8 adds in 2 1x2 black plates stacked on top of each other. There's 1, there's 2, and then a 2x2x1 black slope. And that is what this is. So this black slope. So these two black plates get stacked on top of one another like so, and then they get placed there, and then the black slope gets placed on the back to cover that plate with the hole, center hole. And that does look like it for step 8. Fairly simple. Step 9 looks like it adds in the windscreen for the helicopter, which is always fun. So what that entails is usually a 1x4 black plate with a hinge end. So it usually will be like a considered a modified plate with hinge. Oh no, in this case it's just black hinge plate 1x4. That's what they call this. And then the windscreen, and I'm gonna have to definitely look at this one because this one's got odd dimensions. Let's see here. So trans light blue windscreen, 4x4x4 and 1/3 helicopter windscreen. So that is what this is considered. So the hinge goes on the helicopter windscreen like so it can swing open, and that gets placed right here on the helicopter. And yeah, that's all that there is to step 9. Step 10 adds a couple more lights and what the propeller will be spinning on. So let's grab those lights. It's a 1x1 trans green tile, and then a 1x1 trans red tile, and then it adds in the base for the oh goodness, I don't know what you call it, spinner. It's not spinner though, but basically for the propellers, the blades. And this would be called a 2x2. I think it's a 2x2 modified tile with pin. Yep, I just looked at it. That is what this is called. As you can see, it's got a tile, means it doesn't have any studs on the top, so that's why this is called a tile. And then the pin is in the center there. So that came out there. So that gets placed there in the center. The green light and red lights placed like so on either side. All right. Step 11 now involves the actual blade and propeller. Well, the propeller and the blades basically is what it comes down to. So this is that propeller. I think it's a 4. Let's see, a 4x4 with 4. Oh goodness, where is that at? Yeah, light gray propeller, 4 blade with rounded ends and open hub. So that is what this is considered, and this will snap on right to the center of that pin. Made for a pin. This is technically a standard Technic pin, pretty much. Then this would be considered a light gray 1x8 tile, and I need 2 of those to act as the blades. So we have 2 light gray 1x1 tiles, and light gray as a color, just FYI, since we're talking about it, light gray as a color doesn't exist anymore. They went from light gray to a light bluish gray starting about the time that the Star Wars sets started to exist, because they felt that the color on the Star Wars sets looked better with that slightly blue hinge, or not hinge, tinge on the gray. So at about that time, they started phasing out the light gray pieces. Then they no longer make light gray. That you will, if you see a light gray piece, at least that it's prior to, I'm going to say, at least 2005, maybe 2010, is when they flipped over officially. But with the Star Wars sets, but they started making the light bluish gray everywhere. But yeah, so they don't make these colors anymore. The light gray, that bodes the same for a few other colors as well. Yeah, I know. Light gray, dark gray was the same way. Dark gray, there was a dark gray color that then became dark bluish gray. They added a bluish tinge to it. I don't know why I keep saying hinge. They added a bluish tinge to it at the exact same time as they did the light gray. So the dark gray also was phased out at the exact same time. I don't know what they had against the grays. but uh, they did. They did. Anyway, back to step 11. That's basically it. So it looks like it's just this propeller and the two blades on opposite sides, like so. And it just gets snapped on there on top of the helicopter, and see, it spins as the blade for the helicopter. And so I'm going to go ahead and put the helicopter pilot in there, and you have to be careful because you can only raise that so high or else it hits the propeller. And if you have the blade extended out um, above the windscreen here, you could pop that off easily. I remember doing that a number of times. And so we're going to try to get this guy in here and oops, make his hands fit the controls as we can. So we're going to sit him down in there, and then we're going to try to maneuver his hands and these antenna arms to fit within his arms here. There, got one. And then I need to angle this one to do the same. It's got to be angled pretty far. There we go. Let's see. It looks like he's actually controlling his helicopter there. Close the windscreen. There you are. There's the helicopter. Done. Side view look. Front. So here's the lights on that hinged. The hinged plate and base. I'm sorry if the camera's not focusing when it starts getting a little too close. I made it so it doesn't autofocus because otherwise it would maybe make you a little sick. So anyway, I'm going to stick this over here in front of this isometric camera. Probably should stick a light behind that so it would shine better. You could see that side a little better. Maybe for the next one, I'll put a light behind it so you can see it a little better. All right, on to the truck. So, truck, step 1, we're going to start with the cab or the tractor portion. And that is a 2 by 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. So a 2 by 12 red plate. That forms the base, the first base. That is step 1. Step 2 adds in 3 2 by 2 double wheel holders, and these in this case they're black in color. So we have these double wheel holders, and just as we had with this other red wheel holder, these certainly suffered from the exact same thing over time. Sometimes is that you get one side that would end up getting crushed a little too much, or even the portion of the pin broken off, and the wheel wouldn't fit on it anymore, would just slide on and off. The propeller was almost livable because the propeller didn't ride on anything. But if you had this issue with the wheel and you moved the truck back and forth, that wheel was coming off no matter what. With a propeller, at least, it only came off when you spun it or turned it a certain way. So I felt that the wheel holders were a little bit more problematic to have that issue with. Anyway, so wheel holders, and then 2. Let me look up this to make sure I get this right. If these are thin or thick rings. Okay, they're thick. Okay, so there are 2 red plates, 1 by 1, with what's called a light attachment, and that's typically what went on these were lights when they originally came out, but with a thick ring. And I say that because the earlier models, they had a very thin ring on some of these, where this center portion was actually very skinny. And then these 2 outer studs were squished in slightly. So you'll see that, I think, on my model team set. I think my model team set has a couple of these on it. And I think some of the earlier space sets that I have that thin ring for the light attachment. But in this case, this set actually started, and they've never, again, that was a change that they made. Once they went to the thick versions, they never started doing the thin versions again, and I'm pretty sure that was because they were flimsy, they would crack, um, they were hard to deal with. So 2 of those, and then 4 1 by 1 by 1 round bricks, and red. I didn't mention the color, but that is what we have there. And so these red round bricks go onto the each side of the light attachment like so. And then the wheel holders get added onto the base plate on the end there. One space away there, and then at this end. So this is the front of the truck, this is the back of the truck, and then these basically act as the like gas tanks on the side. Looks like they were placed directly in the middle there. Yep. So those are the basically tanks for the truck. Step 3 adds in 3 2x2 red plates. So there's 1, there's 2, there's 3. In addition, 2 1x1, and I'm gonna have to look at what these were called too, because I always called them light attachments, but that is not what they were called. They are red bricks modified 1x1 with headlight. So again, everything seemed to be focused around headlights, because that's originally what they were used for when they first came out. But they ended up coming, they ended up figuring out there's so many more uses to these types of bricks in the end. But I had to classify them as something on Bricklink, so that's what they chose. And then it looks like there's also a 1x2 red plate as well. So these 2x2s go on top of each of the black wheel holders. The 1x2 sits on top of the 2 1x1 light holders to keep them in place. And then these will go on the front of the vehicle, but they don't actually show as attached in step 3. Step 4 they do. So step 4 basically is using the same red 2x12 red plate on top, and then in addition a 1x2 red plate for the back end. So this will attach the 2 headlight modified bricks, 1x1 bricks there on the front like so, and then that gets attached on top of the truck base, and that's just to keep everything in place. And then this 1x2 is on the end to keep everything level for the build. Next up on step 5, looks like we have 4 black 2x2 corner plates. So here's 1, 2, there's 3, and there's 4. And then in addition, we have the red 1x4 tile plate, or just a tile, 1x4 tile. So again, the tiles doesn't have studs on the top. And then lastly, there is the same 2x2 tile with center pin that was used on the propeller for the helicopter, is also going to be used as the connector for the trailer. So the tile goes on the front of the vehicle. That's basically acts as its front bumper. These corner pieces start forming the cab bottom of the truck, like so. And then again, this is that would be the trailer hitch or pin for where the trailer hitch actually connects to. Step 6 adds in 2 more light attachments. In this case, these are going to be black, so these are 1x1 modified plates black with light attachment. So there's one. We need a second one. Somewhere in here. There it is. Okay. And again, these are thick rings versus the thin ones. And then it looks like we have a 2x4 black mud guard. This is actually considered a mud guard for the front wheels, as well as two 1x1 round trans yellow lights, or in this case just trans yellow plates. And then we have a 2x2 black tile just here, and then a 1x2 black tile, which is located here. So the mud guard goes over the front wheels like that. Cover the front wheel. This, no, I missed one. The 2x2 tile goes there, but I did miss one additional piece. This 1x4 black plate goes here in between the 2x2 tile and the cab area. And then these 1x1 modified plates with light attachment go on the front here, and they actually do hold up to the name in this case. They are there to hold the two front lights, like so. And then this 1x2 black tile goes on the very end. That is step 6. Step 7 adds in a 2x2 black tile, or I'm sorry, black plate, a 1x2x1 black brick, a 1x2 red steering wheel, which is here, a 1x4 black brick as well. So that looks like those 4 pieces are it for step 7. The 2x2 goes on the front of the vehicle here. The 1x2 black brick goes there. The 1x4 black brick, does not go there, actually. It goes right in front of that. And then the red steering wheel goes against that 1x2 black brick. Starting to see the truck take shape. Step 8 adds the doors, a wedge piece, and another 1x4 black brick. So we'll get the 1x4 black brick. Then there is this would be considered a 3x4 wedge plate. And then the 2 doors. So the doors are another thing that I ended up having to which I didn't end up replacing through Bricklink. I actually ended up finding 2 replacement doors within the bulk Legos I had gotten from Goodwill. As you can see, these are the doors. They're fairly good condition, patterns on them. This one has a little bit of scuff marks on that are starting to fade a little bit, but that's not too bad. The ones that I had, and I couldn't really find, or the original ones I had, they barely had any white or red on them at all any longer. They definitely wore their patterns down on those doors, so it was good to find 2 decent doors that I could place on the side of the vehicle, like so. And then the wedge plate goes on the top of the engine there. And then this 1x4 black brick goes on the back of the cab there. And I believe that's it for step 8. Yes. All right. Step 9. Step 9 basically just adds in another wedge plate on top of the existing one. So again, a 3x4 wedge plate. with a, like, they consider it a 1x2 cutout is actually how they'll describe that in full, and then a 1x4 black plate. And that 1x4 black plate gets added on here to the cab, and then this wedge plate just gets added onto the existing wedge plate to double it up and make it level with that 1x2 black brick. All right, going further, step 10. This adds in and I'm gonna have to look. This is a ladder. This is what they consider a ladder, but they use this as a grill on the vehicle in this case. Let's see here. Yes, so it's considered a black ladder, 1.5 by 2x2. So this is what this is considered. But again, they're going to use this as the front grill to the truck. Put that down there. In addition, there is a 1x2 black plate, and then two 1x1 modified black plates with U-clip thin. And again, I have to specify thin because later on they thicken the outside of these U-clips, and it's because they kept these thin ones would snap off and you wouldn't end up being able to hold anything to them. So even though they thickened the light attachment plates here, they had not yet thickened the U-clip plates. They do that though fairly soon after this set, so you will not see these thin clipped 1x1s for very much longer. And I kept to the original Bricklink type when I grabbed the pieces for this set. So these are the thin U-clips as spec'd out. Even though they are technically inferior to the thick ones in strength, I'm keeping to the original. Okay, and then this 1x2 plate goes here in between the. Oh, this always happens. This is break off this. 1x2 goes between the two thick or thin U clips, and then I also missed another 1x2 black plate here that goes right here on the front, in between the grill and the steering wheel. All right, so here's what we got so far. Looking at this, this is starting to get a good truck shape. Step 11 has a slight mini build in it. It is the black hinge tile 1x4. That would be this, which it has a hinge on top versus a hinge in the front. And then the 4x4 black hinge vehicle roof. And as you can see, it's got the same identical pins locations for these. This can also work with the other type that was used on the helicopter, the hinge plate that had the hinges on the edge instead of at the top. So this could attach to both. Same with the blue windscreen on the helicopter. They were pretty much universal. They could go either way. We also have two 1x1 trans clear round plates, which they are always also hard to find because, oh, you know what? Those are not trans clear. I take that back. Those are white. So these are white 1x1 plates. And funny enough, also back around that time, these 1x1s would come on a sprue. Which a sprue is like a center round piece that these attach to, and what you would end up having to do is actually twisting these off to break them off of that sprue, which was useless after that. And I'll have to, I know I have some sprues still around. I'll have to find one to show it to you, but basically the sprue just held these two pieces together. I guess it was easier for the manufacturing process back then, but the sprue you would end up throwing away because it was not used anywhere, and then you just had the pieces it was attached to. And they did that for almost all of these 1x1 round plates prior to a certain date. I can't tell you when they stopped using them. I'm sure it was phased out over a couple years, actually. It probably depends upon the set in the year. But yeah, that's how they came. So you would end up twisting them off to get to them. And then a black 1x2 tile with a center stud. So that is the mini build. And then in addition to that, there are also two of these 4H, which H basically is high. So 4 high light gray antennas. And then two of these light gray minifigure loudspeakers. So they kind of base the name off of what they were initially used for, and these were initially used as basically minifigure loudspeakers. You can kind of see that they hold them, and then the speaker end's there. They could talk at this end, etc. But in this case, that's not actually what they're going to be used for. They're actually going to be used for the base of the smokestacks off the truck. So the antennas are actually going to become the smokestacks, like so. And they get placed here and then snapped into the U-clip. And same here on this one. This one gets assembled like so, placed on the back of the truck, and then snapped in place. And there are the truck exhaust stacks, basically. And hence the reason why those clips were there, to hold the antennas in place so they wouldn't easily get smacked and fall off. The roof is made up of this tile hinge attaching to the hinge roof like so. Then the 1x2 tile with center stud placed there. And then the two white 1x1 round plates placed there. Oh, and there is one more piece we obviously need. In addition, in step 11, is the windscreen. So this windscreen is a trans light blue windscreen. This one's sloped, so it's a 2x4x2 sloped trans blue windscreen, and that is actually what goes on here to hold the doors in place, as well as to be the visible portion for the driver when they're in the truck. And then the roof just comes down on top of the windscreen like so. And so to access it for the minifigure to be placed inside there, that's where they sit. So that is the cab. Step 12 finishes off the truck, the tractor portion of the truck, with just a few modifications to the roof of the tractor as well as the wheels. And I'm going to bring up something interesting about the wheels here soon too. But it is two 1x1 trans yellow plates, round plates again, and then a black antenna with a white antenna base, with a white round 1x1 antenna base. And so this antenna gets placed right on the center stud of that tile, that black tile on the roof, as an antenna, of course. And then these 1x1 trans clear or trans yellow tiles, or again plates, get placed on either end of the roof truck to act as strobe lights, basically. So there's the strobe lights for the truck. And then the very last item for the truck is the wheels, as part of step 12. And so it uses these larger wheels that I talked about in my previous, I think it was the camper video. Yep, it was the camper video. I mentioned that there were two sizes to these snap-on wheels at first, and this is the larger size. And I'll give an example of this. So the smaller wheels, which are going to end up being used on the trailer, the smaller wheels are and the center portion is the same size for both wheel. It's an 8mm by 6mm. This little white piece in the center here, that's an 8mm by 6mm wheel, and it's actually used for both wheels. But when these wheels came, I don't remember if they came in the old days, if they came apart and you had to put them together, because nowadays I know that they just come together like this. I'm almost certain they come together like this now. It's been a while since I actually got a set with wheels like this. Most of the sets I've gotten since then are of the newer style, without this cross pattern in the front or on the side and whatnot. This kind of it tends to be an older wheel type. Um, anyway, at a certain time, I do remember that you had to actually place these inside one another, and I'm pretty sure that was back in the older day. Now I think they come together. Well, I could be wrong. Maybe I got that in reverse. Either way, they have the same. Both the small and the large wheels have the same center piece, but the tire is what's the different size. So I'm going to grab a small wheel here. And obviously you can see the difference there. The tire is much smaller. So this is a 15 millimeter tire. This one's a 21 millimeter tire in diameter. That was the diameter section. And then there's a difference also in thickness. So this one's a 6 millimeter thickness. This one's a 9 millimeter thickness. These were the basic two sizes that they had for quite some time, along with some Technic wheels. But for town sets, this was basically what you got were one of these two types, and in different colors. They had them in different colors, of course. Weren't always white. And some of these wheels I ended up having to replace, and here's why. And I'll show you some of that. Here's one of the wheels I had on the truck before. As you can see, it's kind of warped there in the center. The tire has a couple bite marks, and then you're not guaranteed to be able to smoothly transition or snap this onto those wheel holders, because sometimes even if the wheel holder is perfectly fine, this gets worn out so much in the center that it also won't stick on very well. I mean, you can really see that that's the case here on this smaller wheel. It's been warped very badly, likely through use and a lot of biting. There's quite a number of teeth marks on this smaller wheel here. The larger wheel looks actually in pretty good shape. It's probably usable, just not as pretty. But anyway, those are the two wheel types and some of the ones I had to replace. Titan, I don't think is in my room. I hope Titan's not in the room. I haven't heard him, unless you're referring to somewhere else. Anyway, if he's at the door crying, maybe I must have missed it. In case you don't know, Titan's one of our cats, and he really likes the one. He really wants in here sometimes, and he'll sit at the door and cry or pull at wires and such. But anyway, so the larger wheels are what we're going to put on the truck to finish the truck off in step 12. So place them on there like so. You can hear the snap as they go on. I always like spinning them when I put them on too. So there you are. That is the truck cab, or the tractor portion of the truck. And then we'll go ahead and put the driver in there as well. Sit him in there. Put his hands up. Most times if you kept his hands down, he won't sit down all the way in these vehicles. And then, as you can see, his hat's barely touching the top of that roof. So this is not like they change minifigure sizes, so they really squeezed them in there is all I could say. But yeah, that is the truck, or the tractor, completed. And so now what we have is the trailer. I'm gonna park this over here, maybe a little closer to this camera. But again, I think I need to put light behind that camera in order for you to be able to see it better over there loosely. Now for the trailer to finish this build off. You want to see the cat, Titan. Well, maybe at the end I'll let him in, and you could see him. He's a rascal, that's for sure. He's our youngest cat, but he's a little over a year old, and he's a handful. He is a rough player too. He is very aggressive with his play. Anyway, starting with step 1 for the trailer, we have a 2x2, 4, 6, 8, 10 light gray plate, and then 2 1x6 light gray plates, like so, and they will end up sitting there. I know it's kind of hard to see against the light gray plate background, but I had to pick some form of a color on the background plate, and since light gray is really not used anymore. If I ever do future modern day builds, it'll be easier to see against, but it's not too bad. Next step, step 2, adds in two 2x3 light gray or n by 1 light gray slopes. So that'd be what these two things here, and they go here to connect the two 1x6s to the 2x10. So that is step 2. Step 3 adds in two 2x3 light gray inverted slopes, and then one 4x8 light gray plate. Plate is placed here, like so, and then the inverted slopes are placed on the front of the trailer, like so. Step 4 of the trailer involves a 1x2x1 light gray brick, a 1x4x1 light gray brick, and then a 2x8 light gray plate with holes in the center. This is actually considered a Technic plate. And the holes that are in the center, that's actually what's going to snap onto that pin on the back of the truck. At least one of the plates that will. And then two 1x8 light gray plates. So the 1x2 light gray brick goes there, and then the 1x4 light gray brick goes here. And then on the front of the trailer, this 2x8 light gray plate with the holes goes there, and then the two 1x8s snap onto the side of that 2x8. Next, we have the trailer gets flipped over and we put on the backlights. So what this is this is a I've used these before in my previous builds. And mentioned it. Yes, black bracket. It's a 1x2x1x4. Yeah, and that's exactly how I described it. So I did good on that one. 1x2x1x4 black bracket. And this will be the light holder for the rear lights of the trailer. So in addition to that is a 1x2 white tile, and then two 1x1 trans red tiles or lights. Those two go there on either side of the bracket with the white tile in the center, and that gets placed on the underside of the trailer right here at the end of the 2x10 light gray brick, or I'm sorry, light gray plate, keeping the trailer turned over. They're adding in some more items there to the bottom. So we have a light gray hinged base, 1x2 hinged base, and hinged plate top, like we talked about with the black one that we had earlier on the helicopter. These can come separate pieces or can come together. Typically, though, I do think they come separate. You just snap them together. Oh, greetings from Germany. Well, that's a long ways away, but you're probably closer to where the hometown of where all this came from anyway. Well, thank you for joining us. Yes, I actually work at a company that's owned by Germans. So there's I have to deal with them on quite a regular basis. So that's nice. And then again, Legos are a Dutch thing, very close there to Germany. So, but thank you for joining us again. Good hello. As I was getting back to this trailer, we have the hinge bracket or base that gets attached there, and so that way it can fold over. You'll see why here in a minute. If you can guess why, it's to the stand or feet that will hold the trailer up. That way they can bend under when the trailer's on the connected to the truck. On top of that, here at the bottom of the trailer, we have two 2x2 light gray corners, a 2x2 light gray plate, a 2x3 light gray plate, and that appears all for step 6. Oh no, there are additional 2 1x4 light gray plates and a 2x4 light gray plate with Technic holes in the center of them. And that makes up all of step 6. So the 1x4s cross there to add strength to the end of the 1x8s. The 2x4 goes in the center of that. That adds another layer of a hole onto this trailer to hold to the pin of the back of the cab of the truck. The other 1x4 plate goes there. And then we have these 2 corner pieces go on opposite sides of the trailer here. The 2x2 light gray plate goes there. Actually, I am off by 1. How did I get off by 1? Oh, I see. I see. This was supposed to be here with a light gray 1x2 that I missed in step 5. Sorry about that. I missed in step 5. That 1x2 is supposed to be between the black bracket and the light gray plate there. That will allow me, and that's how I knew I was off by 1, is this 2x3 light gray plate goes in the end here, and it wasn't going to fit in the previous setting. Step 7 adds in 3 2x2 light gray wheel holders, along with a 1x2. Let's see here. It looks like a 1x2 black tile piece, which I'm not seeing there. So why is that? Interesting. Oh, no, I found out where it was. I take it back. I take it all back. It's on the helicopter from the very beginning. Very hard to see. All right. So we're going to take that apart right there. And I believe, yes, it is right underneath this 2x2 black plate with hole at the end. So this 1x2 right here was not supposed to be a 1x2 per se. It was supposed to be the 1x2 with modified with these 2 bars on the end. So now I got to figure out a way of getting this off. And again, I could probably find an orange tool somewhere to do this appropriately versus obviously not using my teeth like I used to do back in the day. We're going to see if we can pry this off. I might need to use the tool. All right, give me a second. Grab a tool from my bin of orange. There we go. Do this the proper way. So this is the new tool, well, the tool that's been going with Lego sets now since, again, I'd probably say early 2000s, but life changer. Life changer. So easy. I mean, you saw how well that came up off of the helicopter. So this was actually supposed to go here with the tail going there. And of course, that gets snapped there. This can now go back. I'm going to put all these pieces back on. This can now get snapped back on like so. And we're back to being okay with the helicopter. So the helicopter's back done. I've got my 1x2 black plate that I was missing now. Bricklink was not incorrect. I have found an official Bricklink error, though, on one of the sets. And when we get to that one, I will let you know that one. And the reason I know that is definitely wrong is because I remembered that piece being different when I was a child. And sure enough, I confirmed it with my instructions. But oh, yeah, you love the old sets from the 80s? So that's what we're doing here is basically just doing some retro builds. I have a YouTube channel. If you missed some of the first builds of the same name, Terrascal Bricks, you can look me up. I've done the little vacation camper that was also in 1998. I think it was 6590, set 6590. And I've also done the turboprop number 1, which was a 1987 build. Um, if you watch my retro build list, there is a number of other sets in there for both 1980s, 1990s. Um, if you want to see one, just list it and we'll build that one next. I've got a number of 1980s space sets I haven't started on because I was waiting until I knew those would be more popular. So I was waiting until, I got a little bit more of an audience to do those. But if you want to see one of those on the next stream, just let me know. I typically stream on Fridays, Saturdays, or Sundays on the weekends at around 7, around this time. I know over there, goodness, you're 5 hours ahead, aren't you? 6 hours ahead, maybe? Oh, 2:12 in night. Yeah, 6 hours ahead. So woo, you're up late. But I thank you again for joining it. Again, if you happen to miss some of these streams because it's so late, go ahead and look at the channel, at the YouTube channel, and you can find some of those old builds from there. Maybe it'll bring back some memories like it does for me. I'm a millennial in my, I'm about to turn 43. So a lot of these sets are from my childhood. Uh, and I loved building them as a kid. And hence why I love building them now, going back through them again. All right, continuing on from that mess, we are almost done with this set. And by mess, I mean me making that mistake on the helicopter. Oh yeah, looks like I broke the blade on it too. Happened quite frequently on that helicopter. Back to step 7. So step 7 added the 1x2 black plate here at the bottom for the feet of the trailer. And then here we have the wheel holders get placed in sequential line here, the back of the trailer, like so. And I believe that is it for step 7. Yes. Step 8. There's only 9 steps to this trailer, so we are almost done. Step 8 now turns the trailer back over, and we add a 1x2 light gray plate, a 1x4 light gray tile, a 1x2 light gray tile with a center stud. That gets added into step 8 along with the wheels. So we have 6 of these white wheels. I've already gone over, the large diameters versus the small diameters of these types of wheels from back in that time. That could be reviewed later if you missed it. But we will go ahead and snap these wheels on. I always love to hear that little click. And then the 1x2 light gray tile with center stud is placed here on the trailer. This 1x2 light gray plate is placed there on that 1x2 light gray brick. And then this 1x4 light gray tile is placed on the 1x4 light gray brick. Last step, step 9, adds in 2 of these side rails at the front. A slight mini build step of a 1x1 round light gray plate with 2 1x1 light gray round bricks, as well as this last 1x2 light gray tile. And it looks as if I actually might have an extra, that might be the extra piece, is the 1x1 light gray, because it doesn't look like there's another one here. I'll check it again to be sure. One of the other things I wanted to show you is so I did end up having to replace one of these what I considered fences, but they consider bars. Again, they're listed as what they were best described as, or what they were used for originally. But I ended up having to replace one of these because, as you can see, this one's snapped there at the stud, and does not hold firmly any longer as a result of that to any plates. So I ended up having to replace one of these by backfilling it. So these, again, what I consider fences are actually just 2x8 bars. Let me see what the official term is. They're red. Yeah, red bar 1x8x2. That's what they're considered. Uh, Interesting choice of name or name of choice, but either way, it is what it is. The light gray round 1x1 goes on the bottom of the two light gray round 1x1 bricks. They get placed here in the center of the 1x2 tile with center stud, and then the 1x2 light gray tiles placed there. And here we have the trailer completed. And so the idea is that the helicopter has a sitting point for being on the trailer. And then, let me see, where is it actually supposed to sit on the trailer? Yeah, that's what I thought. Okay. Yeah, right there. And then you could connect that back end so it'll stay stable onto that little 1x1 round tower there. And then the trailer is just snapped on. And I'm going to take the helicopter off so I can show this to you from the camera here. The trailer gets snapped on there in the center of that stud, like so. And so you have to fold up the feet, of course. And that needs to go all the way through, not just through the first. This always happened when I was connecting this trailer. I remember these bars always falling off. But there we are. We're fully connected. And so, yeah, this is the Stunt Copter N Truck from 1988. As rebuilt pretty much with very well well taken care of pieces. And yeah, are there any? Oh, you like the castle themes? Yes. So um that's one of the few themes I actually don't have a lot of from my personal set, I will say. uh the castle themes tended to be, I have a couple, like two. They're small, not like very large castles or anything, but from the sets I had growing up, most of the large scale castles my family just couldn't afford at the time, so we weren't able to uh for my personal set, I didn't have very many of them, but I have a lot of bulk Lego I bought off of Goodwill, which is a store here in the U.S. that, like, helps people by employing them, and you can gift things to them and then they sell it. Uh, and Anyway, I've bought a lot of Lego off them in bulk, and there is a ton of castle in those. So my plan was to go through those bulk Legos that I've washed and cleaned and pick out what I can find of sets that might have been from that time and era of both castle, space, a number of them, of these retro sets, and see if I can get all the pieces for them so I could build those as well. So they might not be part of my personal collection, but they still would be, fun to watch. And I know there's some larger sets there on the castle theme as well. So I look forward to trying to find that for you then. And yeah, I loved this set as a child because, again, I had a fascination with growing up to be a truck driver, even though I didn't end up becoming one. And this was my first truck and trailer set, so I loved it as a kid as a result of that. So anyway, I very much appreciate everyone's time. I think we're here at the end of the stream. Are there any last second questions regarding the build or anything else? If not, then I can end the stream here. Thank you all for coming and watching with me and enjoying the build. Sorry for the mistake I made, but it happens. But yes. Oh, yeah, thank you. I'm glad it was fun. I'm glad it was fun. My plan is to potentially display these smaller sets up on shelves here in my office after building them. You know, again, memories of my childhood. So kind of brings back good memories of building as a kid. Not just the instructions, but oh, the cat. You want to see the cat? Well, let me before I bring out the cat, let me just say one last thing of um again, if you go to the YouTube channel, find something you like there on that list, uh suggest it in the comments, even on YouTube or in the next stream of what you want to see next. You say themes or castles. So I tell you what, I'll do one of the smaller sets that I had as a castle. It was a Forest Man set. It was just of a little cart and a horse. I'm trying to remember what the number of that one was off the top of my head. I cannot, but I will make that my next build. Yeah, yeah, you're way past your bedtime over there. Unless you work late or a third shifter or something like that, Lades, I do not blame you. Yes, get some sleep, please. And yeah, check me out. All right, I'll go grab the cat Titan right now. I'll show it to you. And yeah, Forest Man, I know those were a popular one. Um, but I always considered him Robin Hood. Even though it was the Forest Man theme, I basically just considered it as Robin Hood and his men in tights and things along that nature. But it's just my imagination as a child. Um, yeah, so I'll go grab the cat now so you can see it, and then we'll end the stream. And I'll see you probably next week on our next build.